Okay, Anna, looks like we are live on YouTube.
Your host now.
Sounds good. Actually, it doesn't seem to say that. Maybe I am mute. I don't even know. Yeah, I must be host. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Anna. And Mr. Lee, just FYI, I'll let everybody into the Zoom call probably around 10 till, so another 10 minutes or so. Um, my co-presiding hearing examiner should be joining us shortly. Okay, Mr. Lee, if you can hear me, I'm going to go ahead and let the parties in. I don't want to wait any longer so that they can test their mics and get set. We still won't start for another 7 minutes. I'm still missing my colleague, but I'm assuming he'll join us here momentarily. So I'm going to go ahead and let the parties in. Okay, good morning. It's a little early. Got another 5 minutes or so before we start. I just wanted to get everybody admitted. If you want to do a mic check, now is a good time. Mic and video check. We're still missing my fellow hearing examiner. He should be joining us momentarily. But if you want to do a mic check, now's a good time.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Am I coming in?
You are, Mr. Herman, loud and clear. Good morning.
James, you want to test out your mic? I'm sorry. Good morning, Mr. Examiner.
No problem. Good morning.
You're muted right now, James.
Ms. Amer, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Good morning to you.
Great. I have a call from Darren, so I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, no problem. We won't get started for another 5 minutes at least, so you got time. Just wanted to make sure everybody had a chance to do a mic check. Mr. Wimberley, looks like you're trying to talk, sir, but you're muted. So if you want to,
Okay, how's that?
there you go. Loud and clear.
Okay, there we go.
Perfect. All right. We'll see everybody in another 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Hearing Examiner. It's Darren Zigich is watching on Zoom, but is it proper for him to do that or to join this Zoom and mute himself?
It's really up to him and up to you, Ms. Amer. I mean, Mr. Wimberley obviously needs to be on right now just because he's going to testify
Right.
first. Mr. Zigich can do it either way. He can join us when he's ready or when we're ready for him, or he can join us now. Either way, we're not going to have that many participants on the call today. So
Yeah.
if he wants to get on now, he can. But he doesn't
Okay. All right.
totally.
Thank you.
Mr. Cronkamp, I've got another housekeeping matter. I can either address it now or on the record, but just that in preparation for the hearing, we noted some corrections that need to be made on Exhibit 2.
Okay. Yeah, I guess let's deal with that on the record.
Okay.
That's probably the better way to do it.
I have a revised or a marked up version that I was going to circulate.
Okay.
And Mr. Lee, I believe your email is Cumbre Court reporting at Comcast. Is that the right email?
It's cumbrecourt@comcast.net.
Yeah, that's what I have. So I'll send that out when we address it on the record.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'm having trouble getting this Zoom loaded back. I minimized it. Maybe I need to just go back into it.
In the corner of the screen, there should be an arrow that's diagonal that goes from south or north west to south to northeast. If you click on that, it should open the window.
Okay, well, I'm trying to. I don't see that.
If you minimize it, it's really small.
Yeah. Should I just try to reload it?
That question I cannot answer.
Okay. Okay, there we go. Then my video's back on. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm here.
We see and hear you.
Okay, very good.
Hello.
Morning, hearing
Hello.
Examiner Schaefer. We can
Yes,
hear
good
you.
morning. Just making sure my audio is functioning.
Yep, we can hear you.
Excellent.
I think we have everybody we need. I think we can start whenever you're ready. Mr. Schaefer.
Great. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to be here with us today. Let's go on the record here. My name is Patrick Schaefer. I'm a hearing examiner here with the Public Regulation Commission. I'm joined by John Kreinkamp, the co-hearing examiner for this case as well. This case is number 25-00005 UT. And the proceeding is the verified joint application of Eileen Acres Service Corporation and Eileen Acres Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association for approval of the transfer of assets and abandonment of certificate of convenience and necessity therefrom upon transfer. And Eileen Acres Service Corporation Incorporated is the applicant. So I don't know if anybody has any housekeeping or other items to address before we get right into testimony. But before doing so, maybe we can just have the parties enter their appearance here for the record.
Yes.
Thank you.
James Wimberly, Eileen Acres Service Corp.
Thank you. Keith Herman on behalf of the joint applicants, Eileen Acres Service Corp. And Eileen Acres Mutual Domestic.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Judith Amer, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Commission Utility Division staff.
And I do have one housekeeping matter.
Yes, I think we just Darren, I'm not sure if you can hear us or if you're connected.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure what if Miss Amer was going to introduce me or not. I'm Darren Zigich. I'm an engineer here with the utility division staff, and
Thank you.
am the sole staff witness.
Mr. Lee,
David Lee, court reporter.
thank you. No, I think we can go ahead and address your issue, Keith, and then we can call your first witness. Go ahead, Mr. Herman.
Thank you. Thank you, Examiner Schaefer. We during the preparation, we noticed some corrections that need to be made to Exhibit 2. I have an email drafted right now with the corrected redlined PDF that I have ready to send to everyone present here, unless there's anyone who's not present who we should include. And I just wanted to note that this correct exhibit, or verify whatever process needs to be done to get the corrected exhibit admitted when we begin our direct test or my direct examination of Mr. Wimberly.
Yes, I think if you could send that to all parties now, or maybe even just describe what the corrections are and what
Yeah,
exhibit it is.
we'll run through those corrections under my direct examination, but also wanted to provide the red line that would uh, just make everything explicit.
Okay, well, what I guess I'm just asking, like, are these major substantive revisions or typographical, or what's the nature of the
I wouldn't say
errata?
they're major. I would say they're substantive, though.
Okay. And the parties have, I mean, have we, the hearing examiners, are we aware of these corrections? I don't think so, right?
No, you are not. Not until we do our direct examination. The in drafting our rebuttal, there were some our memories were refreshed, and there was some misunderstandings that
Sure.
we just want to make consistent throughout our entire testimony.
Okay, so this is exhibit 2 to the rebuttal testimony.
Yes. Exhibit 2, at the moment, Exhibit 1 is our application, Exhibit 2 is direct testimony, and Exhibit 3 is our rebuttal testimony.
Okay, all right, because your rebuttal testimony has also exhibits marked. So
Yes.
you're referring to the exhibits of the application.
The direct testimony was included in our application, but we pulled it out as a separate exhibit for hearing.
Okay, okay. All right, well, unless there's any major objections, I think we can address these changes in your direct, and then also for any cross, and have them shared with the parties. Mr. Herman.
Okay, I've shared that with everyone, so that should be, if it's not in your inbox right now, should be there shortly.
The only other
Okay.
note I would just make, Mr. Herman, assuming that the corrected version is the one that's ultimately admitted into evidence, it'll be helpful after the hearing if you could upload that to Dropbox as well.
Okay. All right, if there's, I don't have anything else. If there's nothing from Miss Amer, I'm ready to call Mr. Wimberly.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Please proceed.
I have one question. Are you emailing it? Oh, I see. It did come into my inbox. Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Yeah, also maybe just a brief, maybe final, but also more prospective housekeeping point with respect to Dropbox. We'll be using that system to facilitate the distribution of the materials prior to hearings and during the proceedings, before and after any hearing. So we'll definitely keep relying on Dropbox as well, not just individual reception by email.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure. Okay, Mr. Herman, are you ready to proceed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Eileen, or joint applicants call Mr. Wimberly, Mr. James Wimberly.
James Wimberly, present. Manager, Eileen Acres Service Corp., President of Eileen Acres Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association.
Thank you. Can I ask that Mr. Wimberly be sworn in?
Mr. Wimberly, would you raise your right hand, please? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter not opinion to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Wimberly. How are you doing today?
Very good. Glad everybody's able to attend and ready to move forward.
You already stated this, but one more time, could you state your name, places of employment, and positions for the record?
Yes, James Wimberly. I'm manager of Eileen Acres Service Corp., and I'm president of Eileen Acres Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association. My business address is 212 Alamo Street, Suite 102 in Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Do you have in front of you what's been labeled Joint Applicants Exhibit Number 1?
Yes, I have that in front of me.
Could you please identify or read the title of that document?
Verified application of Eileen Acres Service Corporation to abandon all regulated utility service and to transfer assets and operation to Eileen Acres Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association upon transfer.
And that's our application in this case?
Yes, and I believe we've identified this as Exhibit 1.
And it was prepared under your direction?
Yes, it was.
With that, I move to admit Joint Applicants Exhibit 1.
Are there any objections?
I have no objections to admission of Exhibit 1.
Okay, it's admitted.
Now, Mr. Wimberly, do you have in front of you what's been labeled Joint Applicants Corrected Exhibit Number 2?
Yes.
Could you please identify that document?
Document stated direct testimony of James Wimberly dated January 15th, 2025.
Do you have any additions or corrections to make to that document?
Yes.
Let's start at page 4, line 3.
Yes. The correct completion date of the wastewater treatment plant was 2020.
And let's move on to line 7, a correction there.
Yeah. Eileen Acres has the parent company, Great Western Real Estate Investments, LLC. Does not have any subsidiaries or affiliates.
And then at page 14, line 1.
Yes, we need to insert the word bank between outstanding loans. So the corrected version says outstanding bank loans.
Do you have any other corrections to make?
No, I do not.
And with those corrections, if I asked you those questions again today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes.
And this testimony was prepared by you or under your direction?
Yes.
At this time, I will move to admit Joint Applicants Corrected Exhibit Number 2.
Are there any objections to the admission?
I have no objections to the admission of this exhibit corrected.
And
It
thank
is-
you.
Go ahead, admitted, Mr. Herman.
Thank you, and I will upload that to the Dropbox shortly.
Thank you.
Okay, lastly, do you have what's been labeled Joint Applicants Exhibit Number 3 in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify that exhibit?
Yes. Rebuttal testimony of James Wimberly dated May 15th, 2025.
And if I asked you all the questions in that rebuttal testimony again today, would your answers remain the same?
Yes, they would.
Do you have any additions or corrections to make?
No, I do not.
And was this exhibit prepared by you or under your direction?
Yes.
This time I will move to admit Joint Applicants Exhibit Number 3.
Objections?
I have no objections to admission of Exhibit Number 3.
At this time, I will make Mr. Wimberly available for cross-examination.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Thank you. Would you like me to proceed at this point?
Yes, so I believe Miss Amer, you're the only individual who will be cross-examining.
Yes,
Okay, yes,
I
please
am
proceed.
the I am the only attorney appearing on behalf of the Commission Utility Division staff. Um, Good morning, Mr. Wimberly. I have a few questions.
Very good. Good morning.
Um, was there ever a time during the life of the private water company, Eileen Acres, that it did not or could not provide service to its customers?
No,
Um, on your rebuttal testimony, you state that one well is located on track 2 and one well is located on track 3. Um, is is that correct? They're separate wells with separate tanks? I'm just trying to get a visual of how this it's set up.
Miss
Ye-
Amer, could you provide a, a page and line number, please?
Yeah, okay, so then it's exhibit 3 and it's attached as exhibit JW2 and it is on page 2 of JW2 of rebuttal exhibit number 3.
is there a line item associated with that?
No, it's
Well, I can tell you, to answer your question, yes, we do have two wells known as points of diversion. Well one is on a separate legal parcel, and then located approximately a half mile away is well number two, and that's located on a separate legal parcel.
but visually are they next to each other?
They're approximately a half mile away.
And does each well have its own tank?
Yes, well one has one storage tank and well two has two storage tanks. The Yes,
Thank you. Um, so going to the transaction that you're seeking approval of in this case, can you describe how you see this transaction?
I can you clarify, please?
Well, is it your understanding that all the assets and liabilities of Eileen Acres Private Water Company are going to be assumed by the mutual domestic?
Yes, yes, they will be.
Um, okay, let me get. Who are the owners of the Eileen Acres Private Water Company? Um, I had some questions about this prior to the corrected direct testimony, which is exhibit number 1. So who are the owners?
Okay, my father started the corporation, and when he was deceased, my sister Sarah Bowen and myself assumed ownership of Eileen Acres Service Corp.
And so in this corrected testimony, exhibit 1, it states that Great Western is the parent company. Who are the president or owners of Great Western?
The same persons, myself and my sister Sarah Bowen.
So you and your sister are the only owners of Eileen Acres Private Water Company.
That is correct.
Okay. Um, are you 50-50% owners?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I'm scrolling down. Okay, in terms of the value of the assets, um, I'm looking at rebuttal testimony, exhibit number 3. I am referring to page 9, lines 6 through 9, where you state, I'll give you a moment. Would you like to?
Well, I believe I can answer the question. I
Okay.
don't necessarily need to reference that at this point. If I do, I will reference the document, but I can answer the question.
Okay, you state, quote, "As I discuss in more detail below, we do not expect to see any financial benefit from this transaction, as the system is essentially being donated to the mutual domestic." Um, can you explain why you say the word essentially? I mean, how is this accurate?
Essentially, what we're going to do is the payback of the loan is based on the vote of the board at its discretion when funding is available. So I have no control. I will be abstained from a vote regarding any payback of the loan as a board member. So if funds are available and the board sees fit to commence repayment of the loan, that will occur.
S- so who is the holder of the loan?
The holder of the loan is Great Western Real Estate Investments.
Meaning you and your sister.
That is correct.
And both of you are members of the board
The board of
of the
Eileen Acres.
mutual domestic.
My sister is not a board member of Eileen Acres Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association.
You are though, right?
That's correct.
Ms. Amer, before you move on, can I just ask a real quick follow-up question?
Sure.
I just want to make sure, Mr. Wimberly, that I have your testimony right. I'm looking at the real-time transcript here. I think what you said was, Ms. Amer asked, can you explain why you say the word essentially? How is this accurate? And you said, essentially what we're going to do is payback of the loan is based on the vote of the board at its discretion when funding is available. So I have no control. I won't be abstained from a vote regarding any payback of the loan. Is that correct? Is it won't or
I will be.
will be? That's what I thought you meant.
Okay, yeah, there we go. That's pretty clear. That's a good clarification. Yes, sir.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yes.
That's all I have, Ms. Amer.
Okay.
So is it correct to say that it may be donated, but may not be?
That's correct.
And it depends on what the board decides.
That is correct.
Okay. And just to put a fine point on that, the board could decide that it would have to be paid back.
The board could choose. Yes, that's the board's decision.
So is it your understanding that it is a liability of the private water company?
Yes.
Okay. And back to the loan. Is it a loan from the parent company to the private water company?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if I were looking at the loan document, it would say from Great Western Real Estate to Eileen Acres Service Corporation.
Correct.
And who would it be signed by for each one of those parties?
I would be signing as manager of Eileen Acres excuse me. I would be signing for both entities, Great Western Realty Investments as the lender and Eileen Acres as the borrower.
So essentially, it sounds like you're loaning, one of your companies is loaning another one of your companies money.
That is correct.
Um, 1 second, I'm sorry. I need to give myself a placeholder. Uh, is that the only liability of Eileen Acres, the private water company?
Yes.
There's no other bank loans?
No other bank loans, no other loans, arrangements.
No other liens on property?
That is correct.
Okay,
All the land is owned fee simple with no debt.
okay. And in terms of the assets, um, they were listed in your testimonies. Are there any other assets?
The assets consist of the main components would be the wastewater treatment plant, the land, the wells, and minor personal property, tools, shovels, rakes, hand tools, company pickup truck that will all be transferred. So we have real estate and we have personal property.
And specifically, I'm referring to your rebuttal testimony, which is exhibit number 3, where you, on page, um, well, there's 2 places. On page 6, you refer to assets, and then on page 8, line 1 through 12, you also refer to assets. Are those all of the assets of the Eileen Acres private
Yes.
company?
Yeah, essentially we have 3 tracts of land, 2 for the wells and 1 for the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, yeah, and I do have a question about the wastewater treatment plant. That was the $150,000 loan from Great Western to Eileen Acres, for purposes of remediating the old wastewater treatment plant.
The loan was for constructing the new wastewater treatment plant.
So did it only cost $150,000 to construct it?
We constructed it in-house, and yes, the approximate cost was $162,000. The loan is for $150,000. But yes, we constructed it in-house over approximately probably a 2-year period.
And what were the problems with the old wastewater treatment plant?
Okay, so basically, when we had suggestions back in 2000, I believe 17 or prior, under our discharge permit to inspect the existing wastewater treatment plant. The existing wastewater treatment plant is an in-ground steel treatment plant. And basically, along with myself and our consultant, Mr. Tony Medina, as well as discussion with other individuals, we looked at few different scenarios. The first scenario was to construct a temporary plant from tanks and then drain the existing tank and weld where needed, coat it, and etc. The issue became that we did not know the extent, if any, of damage or, excuse me, or however we want to term it, deterioration of the existing plant due to the majority of it is underwater. So after getting some quotes just for sealing that plant after we had it drained, we elected to build a new wastewater treatment plant. So basically, the old plant was still up and running, functioning, and there was no compliance issues. The NMED did not request, was not stating that we had to build a new plant, only identify the integrity of it. At that point, we said there's too many hidden costs, unknown factors of draining the plant and or basically repairing it and coating it. So fortunately, adjacent to the old plant, within 100 feet, or excuse me, 150, 200 feet, we have land available, and we constructed the new wastewater treatment plant. And we did the majority of the work in-house. Obviously, we had a PE design it, PE stamp. Then we dug the trench ourselves, and we had Southwest Liner come in and line it. And then we had electrical contractor connect all the electrical pumps, fittings, etc. And then we were able to essentially shut the old plant off and utilize the existing plant immediately. So it's just a quick turnover. So
And
basically, that decision was made probably back in 17, 18 to build the new plant just to set up the company for the long run. It was not required, it was my choice. At that time, Great Western Realty, Eileen Acres did not have the funding and was not in the process. I was not aware actually of mutual domestic option, which probably should have been done at that time, but it wasn't. So essentially, Great Western Realty lent Eileen Acres the money to construct the plant.
and so just to nail down a few points about what you said, it appears you said that the Environment Department never issued any compliance orders.
That's correct.
And you said that, but it's my understanding from what you said that the whole issue was raised when they came down to, NMED came down to inspect it.
They physically inspected, did a visual inspection of the plant and said, you need to do a full inspection of the plant, and that would require draining it, etc. So it was the best choice, seamless, to just build a new plant. Instead of basically, it was either build a new plant or repair the old one, I guess is just a brief, easy summary.
Were but were there any complaints or issues identified about the old wastewater treatment plant prior to the NMED inspection?
No.
Has NMED come down to the Eileen Acres Private Water Company to inspect, or since the new wastewater treatment plant was finished?
Yes, they have on multiple occasions, and we did receive our discharge permit in June of 2024, discharge permit number 398. And we get, I believe those discharge permits are 6-year permits, 6 or 7-year permits. I'm not exactly sure on that, but we do have a in-place current discharge permit.
And has the mutual domestic, it's been formed, so have you applied for public funds from NMED yet?
But not at this time.
Have you,
We will be considering that, I believe.
are you already being regulated by NMED?
In terms of the discharge, the wastewater treatment plant on the sewer side, yes, we are.
But not on the water side?
Water side, we deal with the Drinking Water Bureau, and there's other state agencies involved with that. But predominantly, we deal with the Drinking Water Bureau, and every 3 years we get a sanitary survey. I believe the last sanitary survey was done in 23 or 24. So that's sanitary surveys regarding the drinking water side. NMED is basically groundwater, the sewer side.
So you are being regulated by NMED for both,
Yes.
for the discharge permit and for the sanitary water survey.
I believe that, yeah, I believe the sanitary, or excuse me, Drinking Water Bureau is a division under the NMED.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
okay, there you go. Yes.
Okay. So now I'm going on to water rights. You agree that water rights are essential for providing a service as a water utility.
Yes.
Um, oh, one follow-up question on the, sorry to skip around, but the wastewater treatment plant. Is there any remediation of the old wastewater treatment plant that you are required to perform, or in the alternative will be doing voluntarily?
Uh, the answer is yes, and
To which one?
to the wastewater, the old
Yeah, are you required to perform remediation on the old wastewater treatment
Okay,
plant?
well, remediation, what we're required to do is obviously the old plant has been abandoned, and NMED has requested that we fill it in with dirt. We have to remove the existing material in the bottom of the plant, which it's all dried sludge, and then we will have that tested, and then we will fill the tank, the old plant in with soil, and then cap it off with a gravel layer. So yes, that would be the remediation that we're required to do.
How much will that cost?
Um, well, we got a big pile of dirt and we have a tractor, but we believe that we're going to have to buy some other soil. So I'm going to say 10 to 15,000 probably, depending on, well, we do have to haul the sludge material away, but the sludge material, we believe there's only about 5 cubic yards.
And is it correct that NMED is requiring you to do this by either a statute or regulation? I'm not asking you to name which one.
Yeah. But yeah, it's basically it is a condition of the discharge permit that was issued in June of 2024.
And did they give you a deadline?
Yes, they did, and we have requested an extension.
Or what is the deadline?
I don't have that in front of me. It was, I think they gave maybe a year after the permit was issued. I don't have the permit in front of me, so.
And
But
you mentioned the permit was issued 2024 towards the end, right?
I believe it was June of
Okay, June
2024.
20.
Yes,
So you've requested an extension because that would be coming up fairly shortly of June of 2025. Is that correct?
that's correct.
But you haven't received the extension yet?
I believe, no, I have not. The Groundwater Division is reviewing the extension request. Essentially, on our discharge permit, there's 59 items in there, and 53 of the items we have complied or completed.
So you haven't completed 6 of them.
That's correct. And basically most of those are in regard to abandon the old tank and haul the sludge off and basically disconnect the piping. We've disconnected the piping.
Um,
Ms. Amer, can I ask a real quick follow-up?
yes, that's fine. Yes.
Um, Mr. Wimberly, I want to go back to sort of the start of this line of questioning from Ms. Amer. She asked about the remediation you have to perform, and you gave an answer where you said, in part, we have to remove the existing material in the bottom of the plant, which it's all dried sludge, and then we will have that tested, and then we'll fill the tank, the old plant, with soil, and then cap it off with a gravel layer. What is it that you will be testing? Is it the sludge?
Yes, the sludge is basically the same essentially byproduct that we have tested when we haul our sludge from our drying bed. So that's the dried sludge material.
Okay.
And basically, you have to have it tested and you have to have it hauled by an approved hauler. Then we have the disposal at the Otero County landfill.
And I mean, you may not know exactly, but what is it that you're testing for? Is it contaminants in the sludge? I mean, what is it that
You
you
know, I'm not the operator, but yeah, we test for there's no heavy metals in our area because we've hauled sludge before. So it's just basically testing the makeup of the dried sludge material.
Okay. So, I mean, in your view, I mean, it would not be likely then that depending on the results of that test, that there would be a great deal of other costs involved with the remediation process?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Amer. I appreciate you letting me
Oh,
do
that was very good questioning because that was my question as well. Whether is there a possibility that there could be some contaminant found after the tests were performed?
Well, that's a general question. There's always a possibility. However, based on our past sludge hauling test results, no contamination was found. So I've got to believe that there's none in the current batch. But again, that's why we test it. But
Um,
we do have historical evidence of no contamination in the dried sludge material.
so is it a fair characterization to say that remediation of the old wastewater treatment plant is a liability of the private water company?
Liability requirement, yes.
Okay. Um,
But hauling sludge is a normal course of business for wastewater treatment plants. So this is nothing atypical.
okay. Now I think I can ask you about the water rights. You're transferring all of Eileen Acres water rights to the mutual domestic. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And are those water rights sufficient to provide service to all the customers who will be part of the mutual domestic?
Yes, they are. And we have surplus water rights. So they will be getting the proper allocation for existing customer base, existing usage, and we will have a surplus of probably 30 to 35 acre feet. So essentially, for sake of conversation, we're using about half our water rights.
So you have 75 acre feet of water rights, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're using about half of it to
Yes,
service your customers.
that's correct.
Okay. Will you agree to file the state engineer's transfer of water rights documentation to the PRC once that's been approved by the state engineer's office?
Yes.
Um, I want to go back to your rebuttal testimony, which is exhibit number 3 on page 12, lines 1 through 6, where you state, hold on, I have it written down. Lastly, if needed as a condition for approval here, EASC, which is the private water company, and the mutual domestic would be willing to waive the purchase price, keeping the loan on the books of EASC, where EASC would negotiate repayment terms with our parent company without any contribution from the mutual domestic. Such a requirement is consistent with the PSA, where payment is authorized by the board's discretion. So I have several questions. Um, first, first question that jumped out at me was keeping the loan on the books of EASC. It is EASC going to continue to be a company?
We'll have to decide that once the new company is formed.
Um,
It's highly unlikely, but
Excuse me, I just would ask a clarifying question here. Mr. Wimberly, you just said once the new company is formed, what company are you referring to?
once the not formed, approved. Once the mutual domestic company is approved, we will evaluate the viability and necessity of the existing Eileen Acres Service Corp., the private company.
I guess my question more specifically do you understand the mutual domestic to be a company?
It's a water consumers association, so I guess it's a company. It's a corporation.
It is a corporation?
Yes.
um, do you understand that mutual domestic water consumer associations are considered local public bodies
Yes, I
under
do.
under state law?
Yes, I do.
Um, do you understand that a local public body is a governmental entity?
Yes, I do.
Um, Therefore, are you still of the opinion that a mutual domestic is a corporation?
I'm not an attorney, so I just refer to the mutual domestic as a company. Maybe that's incorrect as far as the terminology goes.
Um,
I know it's a quasi-governmental entity and governed by the Sanitary Projects Act.
um, so just to nail the point down, you're not committing one way or the other to whether the private company will still continue to exist.
That's correct. At this time, I do not know that.
But you, the loan is getting transferred from the private company to the mutual domestic.
That is our intentions.
And all the assets are getting transferred. So, um, does that mean that the private company would exist but have no assets or liabilities?
That's correct.
Um, and to, again, just to put a fine point on this, uh, you are both the holder of the loan and of Eileen Acres, the private water company, and the head of the mutual domestic board that can decide to not repay the loan.
That is correct, but as prior stated, I will be abstaining from any vote regarding payback of the loan as the president of the mutual domestic company. In other words, it's not my decision.
Okay. Um, the rebuttal testimony that I just referred to on page 12, lines 1 through 6, exhibit 3, is that essentially an offer to amend the application?
I would say it is. I may have to refer to counsel on that, but I would.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, that was my mis kind of confusion when I read it. I I didn't want to say that that's what you were doing since you didn't say that that's what you were doing, but it sounds as if that's what you're doing.
We want to get the mutual domestic approved and up and running. That's my goal.
Um,
And Ms. Amer, just one other point of clarification on that same language, if you don't mind.
yes,
Mr. Wimberly, so that line there about again, this is exhibit 3, line page 12. You say keeping the loan on the books of EASC, where EASC would negotiate repayment terms with our parent company. That's the parent company that you own, right?
That the parent company was referred to as Great Western Realty Investments, LLC. Yes, sir.
So who would you be negotiating with? Your
Well,
sister?
I guess we're negotiating with the board, with myself.
Mhm.
And then basically, again, my focus has been on forming the mutual domestic. In
Mhm.
terms of the further existence of Eileen Acres, I don't know. I in terms of that's why we wrote that in there because we don't know. And obviously I would have to consult with my accountant and potentially counsel as to course of action.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Yes.
um, so I still have a few more questions on this point. If the purchase price were waived, and if the loan were kept on the books of EASC, what would be the impact on EASC?
Well, the old company,
Yes,
yeah, well, essentially it wouldn't get paid back. So there would be, yes, there would be potentially financial impact, negative.
would EASC um, need to declare bankruptcy or what would happen?
No, GSC has, other than this loan, no debt, and essentially we're transferring the assets. So, sake of conversation, if the loan is not assumed and all the assets have been transferred, so the only asset would be the loan, and if the loan is decided to, I don't know what you term it, not be repaid, write it off, they would have no assets. So
So,
there's no reason, no, EASC would not have to file bankruptcy either way.
although correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like EASC would have no assets, but would have $150,000 loan on its books.
That's correct. Pardon me, am I still visible? It looks like,
Yeah, I
okay.
can see you.
Okay, there we go. Move my mouse there. So, yes, okay, did I answer your question or do I
You
need?
said yes, that the impact on, and correct me if I'm wrong, the impact on EASC would be that it would have no assets, but it would have $150,000 loan on its books.
That's correct.
Okay, so again, going on with the scenario, what would be the impact of waiving the purchase price and keeping the loan on the books with EASC? What would the impact be upon the mutual domestic?
So the impact to the mutual domestic, is that your question?
Yes.
The impact would be that the mutual domestic would not have that loan as a potential liability. And I've noted that of the loan from the mutual domestic is, well, it's at the discretion of the board, and I have not assessed the probability of that, but I would have to say the probability of payback. It is a 10-year loan. It is interest only for the first year at the discretion of the board. So it's basically the likelihood of payback of the loan is less likely than likely. How about that?
Uh, yes, I understand what the asset purchase agreement says. Um, However, do you agree that the terms of the asset purchase agreement are different than the scenario that you outlined, which I read on page 12 of your rebuttal?
Um, I don't know. I don't know on that.
Um,
I
so
guess you'd
you
have to be, I guess you'd need to maybe be more clear because
would the asset purchase agreement need to be revised if this condition of approval were something that was a condition of approval?
oh yeah, we would have to modify it. We would just take that clause out in the purchase and sale agreement. Essentially, I believe, I don't know what the correct legal terminology would be when you're selling, you got to have a consideration, and consideration would be what's typically put in a contract, $10 and other consideration. So essentially that clause would be omitted.
Okay, I think I am almost done. Uh, would the mutual domestic have to increase rates if the loan were transferred from the private company to the mutual domestic?
I don't believe so at this time. However, uh, we once the mutual domestic is formed, we have to establish bylaws, rules, and regulations. So that would be determined at a future date. And my understanding is that mutual domestics comply with the Sanitary Projects Act, and the mutual domestic company will adhere to the Sanitary Projects Act.
Hang on,
Right.
just one small question.
Go ahead.
Ms. Amer, your question said, would the mutual domestic have to increase rates if the loan were transferred from the private company to the mutual domestic? Which loan are you talking about? The loan that's in the purchase and sale agreement?
Yes, I mean, that's the way the application is read right now.
I'm going to object to form, just as characterized in the PSA, the purchase sale agreement. It's not a loan, it's a purchase price. But we're getting a little conflated here because the purchase price is based on the amount of the outstanding loan, but the loan isn't necessarily being transferred. It's the whether or not the mutual domestic determines to pay back the purchase price, or how it determines to pay the purchase price.
Yeah, that objection is sustained, and I think just for clarity here that I might have some questions on once Ms. Amer is concluded, but there's a separate agreement in the background here, which is the loan agreement that is part of but not articulated in the purchase and sale agreement. So I think that having those two documents and those two agreements separate and clarified separately would help the hearing move forward.
Yes, Mr. Hearing Examiner, you're correct. So Mr. Wimberly, could you please describe those two separate agreements? The loan, it is my understanding is between Great Western and Eileen Acres. Is that correct? And it's in the amount of 150,000.
That is correct.
And then there's a purchase price agreement between Eileen Acres and the mutual domestic, and that too is $150,000.
But that, yes, the total purchase price is 150,000.
And that's the same amount of the loan between
That's
Great
correct.
Western and Eileen Acres.
That's correct.
Okay. So I believe I need to reframe my question, which is, would the mutual domestic need to increase rates or add standby charges to pay the purchase price of the asset purchase agreement?
I don't know at this time. And again, that's the decision of the board regarding repayment of the loan, and I would not vote on that. So it's not my decision. And as far as increasing rates, I don't know at this time. We haven't been informed.
I have no further questions.
Is there a redirect, Mr. Herman?
Yes, if the hearing examiners didn't have any questions, I'd have some brief feedback.
Yeah, I think we should, hearing examiner Schaefer, I think either you should ask questions first, and then I'll ask questions, or I should ask questions, and then you.
Sure.
And then as soon as
Sure.
we're done, then we'll do redirect. I'm just debating in my head when we want to take our first break. It's been an hour. We usually take one around 10:15, 10:30.
Okay.
Probably
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just have some questions here to follow up. Now, Mr. Wimberly, the articles of association have been filed with the Secretary of State, correct? For
That
the
is
mutual
correct.
domestic? Okay. So what is remaining to be completed to formalize the inception of this Eileen Acres Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association?
Well, one, what we're doing today, the PRC approval, then we will have to adopt bylaws, and we will have to set up our rules and regulations.
So that leads me to my next question, which was touched on in the request for additional information from the hearing examiners, which is that the Mutual Domestic Water Association isn't even formed yet to adopt or reject the reception of any assets or liabilities from the service corporation, correct?
I believe so. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't under, yeah.
I mean, the counterparty doesn't exist yet. So the counterparty may or may not even accept or reject any of the assets or liabilities that are being offered to it from the service corporation.
I will say that they will accept the assets, and I guess we're questioning now the liabilities.
So are you speaking for a domestic, for the Mutual Domestic Water Association before it's even formed? Are you guaranteeing? I guess what I'm saying is, how can we guarantee that I think this application and hearing might be taking for granted the certainty that the board of the Mutual Domestic Water Association, Consumer Water Association, will accept the assets and liabilities of the service corporation.
Well, I believe that's why we're forming the mutual domestic to transfer all the assets over. And essentially, we're just changing the ownership or the legal status.
Okay.
Everything, all the staff, all the equipment, everything's going to be the same.
Hearing examiner Schaefer, for some reason you cut out there.
Oh, did I cut out? Can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
your audio cut out. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I was just going to say, so just to clarify, Mr. Wimberly, the Mutual Domestic Consumer Water Association is a separate corporate entity that doesn't exist yet, that we or that the applicants are believing with certainty that they will accept the assets of the service corporation. Is that your
Object
position?
to form on, could you clarify what you mean by doesn't exist yet? Because we have been approved by the Secretary of State, a number of approvals, and do have a board authorized.
Well, that's what I thought, but Mr. Wimberly is saying that the mutual domestic has not been created yet.
Essentially, my understanding is that the mutual domestic water company is formed, is a legal entity, however, does not have any assets.
That was much different from what I just understood you to be saying, that it wasn't created yet.
I go and clarify that it is created, but it doesn't have any assets.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I'm like I said, this is kind of new to me, and I'm not an attorney, but I'll try to answer the questions the best I can.
well, no worries, but you are the a board member of the mutual domestic, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So another question I had is in the rebuttal testimony, and that is page 8, line 3 and 4. And this is an answer in response to a question from the request for additional information regarding the independent third-party professionals and with the evaluation of the assets. And the question was, please provide any and all evaluations of EASC, Eileen Acres Service Corporation, by independent third-party professionals. And on that page and line that I just referred to, Mr. Wimberly says, EASC received a land valuation analysis from Mika Swartz, broker owner of Welcome Home Realty in Alamogordo, and then goes on to say the land valuation analysis indicates a range in land values, etc. Is that land valuation analysis a formal appraisal, or if it is, why wasn't appraisal used? I'm just trying to really understand what land valuation analysis means.
My understanding is that real estate brokers provide what's called a broker's opinion of value and in a normal course of their business. So that's what we did.
Okay, so it's not an appraisal.
Appraisal, it shows market value. Was it done by an appraiser? No. Was it done by a competent individual familiar with the market? Yes. So it's a valuation. I don't know if we call it an appraisal or not. I don't think I'm not a broker and I was commercial real estate appraiser, so I'm pretty familiar with valuations. But in terms of what we're calling it, um, it's a broker's opinion of value.
Okay. Just a few more just clarification questions. The Great Western Real Estate Investments LLC. Who are the owners of that? Is that also Sarah Bowen and Mr. Wimberly?
That is correct.
And that's 50-50 share as
Yes.
well?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Does Great Western Real Estate Investments own any other companies besides EASC?
No.
Okay. Another question I had is also with respect to this essentially qualification that was raised earlier. In the rebuttal testimony that was cited earlier, this is page 9, line 8. As I will discuss in more detail below, so by we, first of all, is this we Eileen Acres Service Corporation, or is this we Mr. Wimberly and Sarah?
Mr. Zimmer, could you point me to that citation, please?
Yes, that's page 9, line 8,
Exhibit 3.
exhibit 3 in the rebuttal testimony.
Thank you.
So when you write we, is the we EASC? Is it Great Western as corporations, or is it Sarah Bowen and Mr. Wimberly as individuals?
Are you asking me or are you?
That's correct, Mr. Wimberly.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
so
the question.
we in that case, I believe, refers to Great Western Realty.
Oh, my final question, and I know the applicants have addressed this to some extent in the application already, but what is the business case for potentially donating $150,000 worth of assets to a mutual domestic?
Well,
Or
basically,
what's the reason? I think that charity is not so common in the world these days, and I just want to get a better understanding of some of maybe the business reasoning behind
the whole
this.
purpose of wanting to become a mutual domestic is to ensure the longevity of the system. So in that, I've looked at various scenarios on determining the longevity of the company being water and sewer service. The options were, there was a few options, but I weighed all the options. So the options were talk to City of Alamogordo, talk to Otero County, both of which were not interested. Specifically, Alamogordo was not interested, or was interested, but however, were not adjacent to their service area. Eventually, that area will be annexed, but okay. Then another option would be to sell the water company. And I've talked to various business brokers out there in the past, and based on our revenue, which is less than 150,000, the water company does not appeal to companies that actively buy water and sewer companies. So the best option is the mutual domestic option. So basically, we're trying to set the company up for the long run, and weighing our options, mutual domestic was the best.
By company, again, you mean it's just
Yeah. Okay.
the terms here are getting a little bit confusing, the pronouns and
Okay.
the entities involved. I think we can help each other by being very specific about who is doing what.
Okay.
So you said the longevity of the company. You mean
Longevity of water and sewer services to the customers.
right? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think that's all my questions for the moment.
Okay. I have a few additional questions. Mr. Lee, I like to think that I'm nothing if not sensitive to my court reporters. Do you need a break, sir? Can you go for another 20 minutes if I have questions?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. All right. Then I'll go ahead and just ask a few. Good morning again, Mr. Wimberly. Thank you very much for your testimony this morning.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, my main question, I have a lot of questions just throughout your testimony, but my main question, I guess, is sort of very closely related to the last question that hearing examiner Schaefer asked. I mean, you talk a little bit about positioning the company and then transitioning to the mutual domestic, positioning them for the long term. But you personally, can you tell me why, you as as the owner of EASC and you personally as the owner of Great Western, why you are motivated to do the sale? Is it that, you're concerned about, just providing service to ratepayers? Is that what's motivating you, sir?
Yes. And I'm 63 years old. I don't have any kids. And if I've got to set this company up for the long run. My dad started the company in the 80s and he worked till he dropped. And I'm trying to be in front of what may, any future. So that's why we're doing it. Case in point, that's why we constructed the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. Um, so let me just go through your testimony here. Guess starting with your direct testimony. So this is exhibit 2. I have questions about your customer base, but do you personally take service from EASC?
Me personally, no.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about just your customer base? You talk a little bit about this is on page 3, exhibit 2. You say you have approximately 200 customers. You're located in La Luz, New Mexico. Looks like about, I think, 66 of those customers are in the Shady Grove RV Park. You also have, I think, the Running Indian Estates. Can you help me just understand your customer base? Is it mostly lower income? Is it a mix of incomes? Any information like that to just help paint a picture of
Yeah, that's a real good question because that kind of helps us identify, who our customer base is and what we're doing. This is basically affordable housing. It's all mobile homes on individual lots. The lots are about 6,000 square feet and various classes of mobile homes, uh, which are predominantly, well, I don't know the exact number, but I would say 95% are owner occupied. So these aren't second home vacation users or users. This is their primary resident for low income households.
Okay. All right. And you testified that assuming that the transfer takes place and everything is approved and the Eamdwca is created, you're going to stay on as essentially the head of the chair of the board, right?
That's correct.
How long after that do you plan on staying involved with the Water Consumers Association?
I don't have any guidelines in terms of how long I'm going to stick around. But we are training we're training our operator Ashley as our assistant now as the operator. Our operator is in his mid to late 60s and will be stepping down at some point. In terms of capacity for labor, we do have 2 backup operators, Mr. Tony Medina and another individual. So in terms of answering your question, how long I'm going to stick around, how long I'm going to work, I don't know that at this time. I'm trying to get this done and set it up for the long run. That's my goal right now.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess just following up on that, that was one of the questions I had, just to get a sense of the personnel or the sort of the organizational structure of EASC now. Can you help flesh that out? So the answer that you just gave, you talked about Ashley, I guess, who must be the assistant operator. You have an operator, two backup operators. Is that your staff? Just help me
Yes.
understand just a
Yes.
little bit. And are they
Yes.
all
Then we have a part-time maintenance person too.
okay? And they will all transfer over to the Water Consumers
Yes.
Association.
And we're a small company with a small budget, and we're fortunate that everybody's able to do their job and work on a part-time basis.
Mhm.
We're not flush with cash here in terms
Yeah.
of, so it's good. But with having the new treatment plant in place, water rights in place, we have a clear path to the future.
Okay. And when do you anticipate that the first election of officers would be held for the Water Consumers Association?
Well, essentially, we have a board established,
Mhm.
but we can't set up bylaws and we can't get our rules and regulations done until the assets are transferred.
Right. Right.
So to answer your question, as soon as we can.
Let's see, a couple others. You touched on this earlier. I don't remember if it was in response to my question or hearing Examiner Schaefer's, but talked a little bit about the Alamogordo municipal water system. Does that municipal water system only provide service within the city boundaries?
Yes, and the boundary is probably 2 miles to the north. However, in the sphere of what is sphere of influence or sphere of future it's in the sphere of future growth for Alamogordo, but uh, Alamogordo is a slow growth, retirement, military orientated town. Not like a system in Albuquerque or Las Cruces that municipalities, as the cities grow, the municipalities absorb these small water companies.
Right.
That's just, unfortunately, that's not present in low growth Otero County.
And that makes sense. Are there other small water companies, sort of to pick up on your last thought there? Are there other small water companies on the outskirts of Alamogordo, or is EASC sort of the only one right now?
No, there's other ones there. La Luz Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association is about less than a mile away from us. They just provide water service. The difference with them is the economies of scale. I've got about 200 customers and they've got over 750 customers. And I service both water and sewer with one part-time operator and one part-time assistant. And then myself as the manager.
Okay.
So, and then there's probably other ones, but in terms of mutual domestic, I do know that that's the ones I'm familiar with.
Okay. I guess just one other preliminary question. This is also on page 3. You talked about the original formation of EASC in 1984. You say it was formed in October 1984 as a joint venture between Wright and Wimberley. Who's the Wright? And for the record, that's WRIGHT.
Yeah. I can't remember the gentleman's name. He's long since deceased, and I can't remember the exact year that my dad bought him out or however the transaction occurred. But essentially, it was those two individuals that started the company. Then, and I would have to say maybe I've been there 10 years, so it's at least 20 or 25 years that Mr. Wright was no longer involved.
Okay.
So I have no contact with him or his heirs.
Okay, that's fine. I just
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
I'd ask the question. Another question that I had, this is on page 15 of your direct testimony. Talk a little bit about public support for the applications at the bottom of page 15. I'm just hoping you can expand a little bit on this answer that you gave here. Can you talk a little bit about the outreach that you may have done, to your customer base, to the community in connection with this application and your plans for sort of transitioning?
Yeah. I've filed with my notice of application and sent the documents out. In terms of informing the customer base, I started probably back in 2017 discussing potentially the formation or restructure of the company. And then I often, there is no neighborhood advisory board, there is no HOA, but I often talk to inform, the customers and tell them, this is what we're looking at doing. What's the advantages? One, it's going to ensure the long-term viability of water and sewer services. So then you see in there that I've got a couple of letters too.
Yes, I do see that. And do I take it from those letters? Those letters obviously are supportive, that generally what you've heard from your customers and the public is that they're supportive. Is that fair?
I would say that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, let me, one of the things that I noted, just going through testimony and hearing Examiner Schaefer and I were noting this the other day, there's a lot of reference both in your testimony and in staff's testimony about the advantages of the sort of the public benefit to come from the mutual domestic being subject to the Open Meetings Act. Like for instance, this is on page 10 of your direct testimony, so Exhibit 2. Talk a little bit about being subject to the Open Meetings Act. I think there's several references in your testimony to that. I think there's several references in staff's testimony to that. And one of the questions that I just had about that, the Open Meetings Act is important, and I get the point that you're making. But one of the other, I guess where my brain goes when I see those references to the Open Meetings Act as a political subdivision, there are a variety, right, of state laws that the Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association will be subject to. And the Open Meetings Act is sort of the tip of the iceberg, right? So if you go down, you have the Audit Act, I think is applicable. The Governmental Conduct Act, I think, is also applicable. Eamdwca, some of those statutes can be burdensome on local entities. I think is at least I would see that as fair to say. Are you and is your staff prepared to assume some of those responsibilities? I'm thinking in particular about IPRA requests and things like that. Are you familiar with those responsibilities, and are you prepared to shoulder those?
We're prepared to shoulder them, and I'm learning about what needs to be done. I've already taken a couple of educational courses and have been exposed to Open Meetings Act and the Procurement Code.
Okay. And obviously you have legal counsel, so you have some assistance there, but I just figured I'd ask. Yeah, and one question that I had, so I guess this is in sticking with Exhibit 2. This is Exhibit JW3 to Exhibit 2. This is the asset purchase and sale agreement. This is on page 8, I think. Yes, page 8 of 21. The interest rate for the loan is at 2.5%, amortized over a 15-year period. And you talk a little bit, there's obviously the provision there about repayment being determined by the board of directors. Even if the board of directors does, I get my question to you, even if the board of directors does approve repayment, that 2.5% is a below market interest rate, at least at present. Is that correct?
Well, it depends on what you're determining market interest rates. Many of the loans that I've seen available to mutual domestic companies have no interest or a very low interest rate. So if a private party, it's probably below a rate that a private party would lend. What I'm
Mhm.
trying to do there is just be legit. I'm not being greedy, and I want the company to exceed. That's why those terms are so favorable. As you also see in there too, there's a 50% discount option if it's repaid within 3 years. So I'm not, I guess my answer would be I'm not trying to play hardball with the loan. I'm not trying to handcuff the mutual domestic company.
Yeah, I mean that would be my interpretation of the asset purchase and sale agreement. Candidly, that was really where I was going with that question. It's just to get a bit of testimony on that point. Turning now, I think, to your rebuttal testimony. Let me go through and see here. There's a reference on page 6. So this is Exhibit 3. You talk a little bit about this question that the hearing examiners had asked you about the status on the creation of the Water Consumers Association. You say Eileen Acres commits to completing all remaining requirements within a reasonable time. Is that a reference to establishment of the bylaws? Can you tell me what remaining requirements you're referring to there?
Yes. Yes, and then we have bylaws and rules and regulations. So basically, if and when we get approval, we want to hit the ground running.
Mhm. Okay. And sort of sticking with that same question. So the Water Consumers Association, I think to Mr. Herman's point earlier, it has been created, right? I mean, there are articles of incorporation.
Yes.
And you said, I think previously, that you have a board. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Have you had a board meeting yet?
No, not
Okay. So you eventually you would have a board meeting, you would adopt your bylaws. Is that
yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are your bylaws then subject to any review and approval process? You have to submit those to NMED? I don't know what that process looks like, or is it essentially just approval by the board?
I do not know that.
That's fair.
I have to refer to counsel on that.
That's fair. Let's see.
I can say that most of the bylaws I read are pretty generic.
Just a couple remaining questions. One question I had, this was, I guess, going back to Exhibit 2. You're asked on page 10, this is your direct testimony, you're asked about any bill impact or change in rates as a result of this transaction. Has EASC, has it increased its rates over the past few years?
Define few for me.
5.
I believe our last rate increase was 22.
Okay.
So
And
yes.
do you remember what approximately percentage maybe you raised your rates at that time?
I don't recall percentages, but when we did have a pretty low base. So percentages, I know that and of course I've dealt with PRC regarding that. But percentages, I don't recall percentages. Dollar amount, I think we went from $16 base rate to $20 base rate on our water and our sewer. I can't recall the exact numbers, but I'm going to say $32 to $37 on our base rate. And then the water's metered and sewer's a flat rate.
Okay. All right. That's good. You made this change to Exhibit 2. One of the changes that was made was on page 14. You inserted the word bank on the top of page 14. So this is line 1. So now it reads, EASC owns 100% of the assets to be transferred and has no outstanding bank loans or past due payments. Ms. Amer asked you earlier if you had any other types of loans. I think you said no. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So if there's no loans, why was this correction necessary?
I think well, essentially we want, there is the loan. I guess I'm not understanding exactly which entity you're referring to, but there is the loan between Great Western Realty and Eileen Acres Service Corp. We've talked about that. In terms of any other loans, there's not. So we're just identifying the fact that there are no bank loans out there. And as we've stated in the rebuttal, we've discussed the loan.
Okay. And so essentially what I understand then from the totality of your testimony is, other than this $150,000 loan from Great Western, there's no loans. EASC has no loans outstanding.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, good question for clarification. Yes.
Yeah,
And that's
been a little confusing. So I just
that's why we added the word bank in there, just to be a little more clear.
Okay, that sounds good.
I added it in from a,
Okay, that's great. I have no questions here. Examiner Schaefer, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Should we take a break for 15 minutes and then we can resume testimony and any other matters we need to attend to?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So, Mr. Herman, we'll take a break and then we'll come back with your redirect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll be back for the record, we'll be back around 10 till.
That's
Okay.
right, 10:50 a.m. Thank you, everybody. Okay, it's 10:49. I think we're almost ready to go back on the record, just maybe waiting for Mr. Lee and okay, there's Mr. Lee. Mr. Zigich, are you with us? Ready to go back on the record?
I'm here,
Great.
but yeah.
Okay, so parties are all here. I think we were ready to proceed to Mr. Herman's redirect, and if there's no other business to take care of, Mr. Herman, please proceed.
Thank you. Good, still morning. Good morning, Mr. Wimberly. I hope you enjoyed your first experience at direct and cross-examination by the hearing examiners. I just wanted to clarify a few points that arose during your cross and direct examinations. And for clarity, when I'm going to be deliberate and refer to EASC as, or the small water utility as EASC, and the mutual domestic as the mutual domestic.
Okay.
So could you go to your direct testimony, exhibit JW3, the purchase and sale agreement?
Okay, I'm familiar with it.
I want to refer you to page 3 of the purchase and sale agreement regarding section 1.2 on the property.
Okay.
Do you have that available in front of
Yes.
you? Let me know when you're there.
Okay. Okay. Well, section 1.2.
Yes.
Yeah, this thing's not numbered. Is there an item number on that?
It's exhibit in the top right. It says exhibit JW3,
Yeah.
page 3 of 21.
Okay, page 3. Okay.
And then section 1.2 is property.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. I'm on that.
So the property that's subject to this agreement is the real property with the appurtenances of the above described real property and the improvements on it, including buildings, water rights, emphasis on water rights, water right claims, water wells, tanks, water hydrants, or water lines, hydrants, water facilities. So that includes all the, let's say, the physical assets of the water treatment plant, or I'm sorry, the small water utility.
Yes, but yeah, consisting of all components of the water, drinking water and wastewater systems.
Okay. And as I mentioned, that includes the water rights, correct?
That's correct.
And you mentioned in your either your rebuttal or your direct testimony that after we get PRC approval, the next step would be to get approval from the state engineer on that transfer.
Yes, transfer the water rights. And I've had brief discussions with them. And essentially, we're not moving the water rights to a different location, so it should be fairly easy. The service locations are the same.
Staying in that same exhibit, I want to go to page 8 of 23 on the sale agreement or on the funding of the transaction.
Okay.
And I'm going to be clear here that this is within the purchase and sale agreement. So we're talking about the purchase price of $150,000 that the mutual domestic is paying or has agreed to pay EASC for the assets, correct?
That's correct.
So, as we mentioned, if necessary to obtain commission approval, um, I'm even tripping myself up. You as president of EASC have represented you would be willing to forego that purchase price, correct?
That is correct.
And you have authority from EASC to do that, correct?
Yes, I do.
Um, as board member of the mutual domestic, or are you chair of the board?
President.
President, excuse me. Could you represent that the board would be willing to similarly waive that payment today?
I don't think I would vote regarding that.
Because you'd excuse yourself?
Yes, as prior stated,
But
any action regarding the loan, I would abstain from that.
but do you think it would be a safe assumption that the board, if the option with that information that EASC is willing to waive that term, do you think it would be likely that the board would accept that?
Yes.
Do you think that is consistent with the PSA as drafted right now, or do you think it needs to be amended?
Well, the PSA wouldn't, in my opinion, need to be modified because it states that the payback of the loan is at the discretion of the board.
Thank you. Regarding the remediation of the old wastewater treatment plant, would MMED be requiring that regardless of whether or not you were a small utility or a mutual domestic?
Yes, that's a condition of our discharge permit, which we will still be they will still be reporting to them either way, whether we're privately held company or a mutual domestic, we're still a public utility.
If this application were granted, where we're asking for the commission to abandon EASC's Certificate of Convenience and Necessity, or CCN, would EASC have any ability to try and recoup its outstanding loan from its past, present, or future ratepayers?
No.
And it would essentially be a loss on the books of a private company, correct?
I believe so. I would have to talk to my accountant for full clarification, but I believe so.
You're generally aware that private companies of all shapes and sizes take losses on occasion.
Unfortunately, that's part of doing business on some companies. Yeah.
Okay, so just talking about the formation of Eileen Acres subdivision, would you say it's generally uncommon or common that a developer would also build a utility to provide water and sewer services to a development?
Yes, I mean you got to have water and sewer, or either you have well and septic. I mean it's pretty straightforward. And for having you have to have at least a half acre or 3/4 acre lot for a septic tank, and you'd have to have a well. But so yes, it's very common.
That a private company would build both a utility and the development.
Yes.
Are you familiar with other examples of
Yes.
that happening?
Yes.
So this ownership structure is not uncommon or unheard of.
Not at all.
Um, I believe that ends my redirect. Thank you very much for your testimony today.
Very good. Thank you.
Oh, and Mr. Examiners, I'll note that my legal assistant has uploaded the corrected exhibit to the Dropbox, the corrected exhibit number 2.
Hearing examiner Schaefer, I think you're on mute.
Hearing examiner Krankamp, did you want to interject and say something?
No, I don't think so. I don't have any
okay.
remaining questions. I guess the only question I would have is if Ms. Amer maybe has any questions on recross.
Yes, that's what I was going to address. Go ahead, Miss Amer.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiners. I do have one question. When the if approved and the transfer is completed and after the mutual domestic is formed, how will the customers receive notice? Will it be through the first bill will say mutual domestic instead of service company, or how how do you anticipate the notice being provided?
Well, we've already sent out the notice as required, and essentially, um, I'm in the office. I talk to the customers daily, so they would be informed by any documentation that I need to send out by a mass mailing and display in our office, and essentially the name would change on their bills. So I talk to like I do, I talk to customers daily and keep them informed of my actions.
I
Or
understand. So, but I mean, once all the steps are complete and the mutual domestic, before they send out the first bill, you'll be sending a letter to the customers? Is that what you just stated?
if required, and I think even if it's not required, I think it would be a good idea. So yeah, I would be sending out written notice to the customers. Yes.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Miss Amer. I just had maybe one final follow-up question, Mr. Wimberly, and it revolves around continuity of service. And the curiosity that I have is if the Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association is formed, if the articles of association have been filed and received, if the directors have been seated and named, and the officers have been also named and identified, what is preventing the Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association, that is Eileen Acres, MDWCA, from approving the reception of the Service Corporation, Eileen Acres Service Corporation assets, even on a contingent basis, such that the Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association is ready immediately to continue service? It seems that there is just still some uncertainty here regarding the transfer of the assets to the Mutual Domestic.
Well, we've already had a purchase and sale agreement showing the intentions. And so without assets, there is no mutual domestic. So yeah, we would, yeah, we would, with the assets would transfer it. That's what we're trying to do here. So I don't see how, I don't see a rejection possibility in terms of the mutual domestic accepting the assets. That's one of the reasons that we put together, tried to value the assets to show, to be full disclosure on what the value of the assets are, what the assets are. So that's been fully disclosed.
Thank you, Mr. Wimberly. I have no other questions. Hearing examiner Krankamp, is there anything that you would like to address at this point?
Sorry, trying to unmute. No, I think that's everything. Thank you, Mr. Wimberly.
You're welcome.
Well,
you.
thank you everybody for participating today, to the parties, to the attorneys. And if that is it, if there's no other questions or no other business to address, I would adjourn this hearing.
Hang on,
11.
hearing examiner Schaefer. We have
Yes.
one more witness, sir. We have Mr. Zigich.
Go ahead, Mr. Zigich or Miss Amer.
Thank you, hearing examiners Schaefer and Crankamp. Can we swear in the witness, please, Mr. Lee?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Zigich, you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning.
Hi.
Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, I'm Darren K. Zigich.
And where are you employed, Mr. Zigich?
I'm an engineer with the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission Utility Division staff.
And what is your job title?
I'm an engineer, senior engineer in that division.
Did you prepare testimony regarding the verified joint application of Eileen Acres Service Corporation and Eileen Acres Mutual Domestic Water Consumers Association for approval of the transfer of assets and the abandonment of the certificate of convenience and necessity upon transfer?
Yes, I did.
Are you looking at the download in the Dropbox, which is marked as Utility Division Staff Darren Zigich direct testimony marked as Exhibit DZ1? Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
It's my direct testimony, in this case, dated April 24th, 2025.
And what is the title of, is it prepared direct testimony of Darren?
Yes, sorry. Yes, it is.
Okay. And was staff's Exhibit DZ1 prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes, it was.
Do you have any changes or corrections to staff Exhibit DZ1?
No, I don't.
There is also an Exhibit DKZ1 attached to your testimony. Is that true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, it is.
If I were to ask you the same questions today, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Do you adopt staff's Exhibit DZ1 as your sworn testimony in this matter?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Hearing Examiners, I'd like to move entry of staff's Exhibit DZ1 into the record.
No objections.
Admitted.
I have one just brief housekeeping item on this exhibit, Ms. Amer, before we go much further.
Yes.
When Mr. Herman uploaded his exhibits to Dropbox, one of the things that he did was he stamped them in Adobe or however that's done technically, where it said joint applicants exhibit such and such. I perused this exhibit, staff's exhibit 1. I didn't see a stamp in here. What I'd like to ask you to do, if you can, and I can't imagine that there'd be any objection to this from Mr. Herman, but if you could just go in there and upload a version that has that stamped as staff exhibit 1, just so that when the record is compiled, it's clean.
Yes, I apologize. I didn't know that I needed to do that, but I will do that.
Yeah, it's fine. Mr. Herman, I don't suppose you have any objection to that.
No objection.
Okay, thank you. And sorry for the interruption, your examiner Schaefer.
Go ahead, Ms. Amer.
I have no further questions and I pass the witness.
Ms. Amer, did you move to admit the exhibit? I think you did, just.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
I did.
All right. We have no questions for Mr. Zigich. We thank him for his testimony. I just depending if something happens under the hearing examiner's examination, I might reserve recross.
Well, I think have all parties presented their witnesses, and is there any other testimony that we need to take here during this hearing?
Hearing examiner Schaefer, I do have a few questions for Mr. Zigich, if you don't mind. Let's see. There you are, Mr. Zigich. I'm just trying to find you on my screen, sir. Good morning.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hearing examiner.
I just had just a few clarification questions. I think your testimony is pretty succinct. I understand your recommendation. Let me just ask, and I'll come to sort of my final question here, but let me just ask a couple of clarification questions first. So the first question I had for you, this is on page 3 of your testimony. You talk about this on lines 12 to 14. Talk about how the mutual domestic will apply with the state engineer's office for a transfer of the water rights. I'm not familiar with that administrative process. Can you tell me, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but is that a time-consuming process? And, you know, is that an adjudicatory process, or is that something that is handled fairly speedily?
Well, yeah, I'm not familiar with water rights transfers myself either. I've worked with the state engineer in the past, but I'm certainly not an expert in that. And I kind of am leaning on Mr. Wembley's assertion that that's kind of a paperwork transfer because the point of diversion is not changing. And so there's really no engineering analysis that needs to be done. It's a name change. So I would defer to Mr. Wembley, but I kind of believe him when he says it's mainly a paperwork ordeal.
Okay, that's fair. So as far as staff is aware, that should not be an especially lengthy or time-consuming process to essentially secure that paperwork.
Yes.
Okay. So my next question, this is just a clarification point, but if you look at page 18 of your testimony, you're responding to this sort of broad question about staff's recommendation with respect to the transfer of the assets. You're talking on page 18, lines 11 and 12. You say, as previously detailed, staff believes the proposed transition adequately meets the net public benefit test, as well as the 6 factors test, even though NMPRC jurisdiction will not be preserved. And then you say, while this alone could be decisive in showing no net public benefit. What are you referring to in that clause? Are you referring to the loss of PRC jurisdiction there? Is that what that's a reference to?
Yeah, and that's frankly, that's where some of this confusion occurs to me, because it's an abandonment, but it's also a transfer. Some of these acquisition cases that have been done in the past with our larger utilities have used that 6-factor test, and that seems to be where Mr. Wembley's original direct testimony was going, was to take care of those 6 factors, those 6 questions that are apparent in many of our larger utility acquisitions. And but the one thing that's you can't show in one of the questions is is PRC is the commission's jurisdiction maintained? Well, in this case, it's not. And in other cases, that hasn't been an issue, especially, in cases where these small water systems get absorbed by the city of Las Cruces, for instance, or some other larger domestic water system. The benefits outweigh those when it gets absorbed by Las Cruces, it leaves PRC jurisdiction also. So it's kind of that this PRC jurisdiction really factor in to this net benefit if they're still regulated by NMED very heavily. It opens up the open meetings rules, so that potentially there's more public involvement. So there's a lot of other benefits that come with sliding it into a mutual domestic, and then just the public funding that that is available. So it's a matter of, yeah, the PRC will no longer have jurisdiction over this entity, but in the broader sense, it's a net benefit. So that's kind of what I was trying to do, is make an argument that commission jurisdiction is not always in the public interest if it's
Okay.
moving on to something else.
And that's fair. I mean, so I'm just trying to make sure I understand your testimony. I mean, that's really the reason for this question. I guess I understand the point that in some sense, a loss of PRC jurisdiction might cut against the public benefit side, but again, it is outweighed, as you testify, it's outweighed a little bit, or at least it's balanced out by the essentially that new NMED jurisdiction, right? So it's not that the state is losing jurisdiction, it's that the PRC as an agency of the state is losing jurisdiction. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And let me just follow up with that. And you may not know this answer. This may be similar to the state engineer. Can you tell me a little bit about NMED's oversight role, to the extent that you're familiar with that, over mutual domestics?
Yeah, I'm not really fully aware. I mean, I know NMED does have, EPA loan programs for wastewater treatment facility, domestic wastewater treatment facilities. And then because it's moving to a public entity, it opens it up for, legislative funding and other things. But yeah, the limits, the details, I think, are again more specified in Mr. Wembley's testimony about just how NMED oversees that system, and from an environmental standpoint, they'll still have the same jurisdiction. I wasn't aware. I think in Mr. Wembley talks about they have some possible rate control. I don't. Not exactly sure how that works, but so I'm pretty limited in that knowledge base.
Yeah, I'm not terribly concerned, I guess, about that. I mean, obviously, hearing Examiner Schaefer and I can read the statutes and the rules and figure out, I would imagine, fairly quickly what NMED's oversight process is and what their authority is. So that's fine. I just thought I would ask. Just a couple of other questions. This is again on page 18, and I asked Mr. Wimberly about this, and his answer, I think, was what I was looking for from him. I just want to ask you, look at this line, or look at the sentence that you have on page 18, lines 15 through 17. You say, furthermore, there will be benefits from the formation of a MDWCA, since that will make the utility subject to the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. As I sort of explained to Mr. Wimberly earlier, I find the focus on the Open Meetings Act helpful, although, a little sort of incomplete, because there are other statutes that are in play here. And as I mentioned to him, I mean, we're talking about IPRA, the GCA, the Audit Act. And I guess, as I'm looking at that part of your testimony, I mean, that would also be to an extent a public benefit, right? I mean, if there's a benefit to the public from the transparency that comes from the Open Meetings Act, those other statutes would only sort of amplify that benefit as far as this analysis goes. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I frankly, personally, I kind of see it as my development, my housing development that I live in. The HOA, there was bylaws and all that, but the HOA was basically controlled by the builder until he built out enough lots. And then the community, the HOA, the community-based HOA formed. And that's when we started having our annual meetings and this and such, and started voting on the cost of running the HOA and things. So I think in some ways it's kind of similar, in that regards, where the builder had total control of the community initially, and then once they built out, then the community took over the HOA over time as it built out. And this is kind of that same, I see this as kind of a similar progression, a maturity of that community.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple other questions. Just I guess one sort of combined question. There's 2 points in your testimony talking about sort of the track record, I guess, of EASC that I want to ask you about. So if you look at page 20, you say on page 20, lines 4 through 7, you say it is also staff's belief that the water and wastewater systems outside of some reporting infractions has been operating in compliance with NMED rules and regulations. So that's on page 20. Then on page 21, you say, you're asked this question, has the commission received any complaints from customers of EASC? And you say that the Consumer Relations Division of PRC has informed staff that they have no records of any informal or formal complaints. So I take it from those two that the commission should be relatively satisfied or very satisfied. The EASC has had a strong track record as a company in providing service to its customers. Is that also fair?
That's the indication we have. It's the data available.
Okay. All right. I think that's all the questions I have for you, Mr. Zigich. I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing further either. Mr. Herman, Ms. Amer, do you have anything further to address?
I have nothing further.
I might just have a quick line of recross.
Sure.
Good morning, Mr. Zigich. Going back to page 18 of your direct, talking about NMPRC jurisdiction, are you aware of exemptions that certain utilities may have from the Public Utility Act?
You mean like a municipal
I
utility?
mean, like municipal utilities. I think mutual domestics are exempt.
Yeah.
I don't think it's mentioned, but tribal utilities aren't covered. So it'd just
Yeah.
be fair to say there's a few exemptions, and
Yes, exactly. And that's the difference. It's not a PNM all of a sudden leaving jurisdiction of the PRC and going into a vacuum. It's there's another, in this case, there's another level of well, in this case, the NMED still maintains their jurisdiction.
and as a public entity, for example, municipal utility, customers and citizens would have a direct say in the leadership of their utility.
Yeah, I think that's the basic premise of why they're exempt from the Public Utility Act, is because there's more local control. from with those entities.
And I think it's fair to say that most of the people here in this room probably get service from one municipal utility or another, be it garbage, water. So it's not uncommon.
No, not at all.
Do you have any idea how many mutual domestics are in New Mexico?
I don't. I'm assuming it's quite large.
Yeah. Do you have any idea how many small water utilities are still regulated by the commission?
No, I don't have that number either, but
All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
okay.
Well, it seems that all testimony has been provided and the opportunities to cross and redirect. So unless there's anything else pending, hearing examiner Camp, is there anything you would like to address before we adjourn?
Yeah, let's just talk just briefly about post-hearing briefing. Not because I'm expecting it, but because I just want to address it. I mean, Ms. Amer, Mr. Herman, I mean, one of the reasons why we asked you all to provide a brief beforehand is because we expected, I think it was Mr. Herman, to be potentially unavailable afterwards. And we received that. It's very helpful to us. I think I have a much better understanding of where the parties stand on the law. I do think it's important just to give you an opportunity if you want to submit a post-hearing brief. I certainly don't want to preclude you from that joy. But if you don't want to do it, then that's fine. That's fine as well, I think, from our perspective. Ms. Amer, do you have a preference about post-hearing briefs?
Not especially. I was just going to ask if you would like the parties to submit a joint proposed recommended decision.
I'll address that in just one second. That's a fair question. But Mr. Herman, how do you feel about post-hearing briefs? We would be willing to waive the need for briefing unless there was a specific issue the hearing examiners requested being briefed. I believe the application and testimonies are sufficient to establish or answer any outstanding questions. But if briefing is an exercise the hearing examiners would find helpful, we'd be happy to provide one. And I'd also second that we could provide. I would be willing to get together with Ms. Amer and submit a joint proposed form of order or a joint proposed recommended decision. Well, I mean, as far as briefing goes, I don't have any further subjects that I really need briefing on. Hearing examiner Schaefer, do you have anything?
No, I'm satisfied.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the only question that I have right now really in my head is just because, I'd asked Mr. Zigich about NMED's role, but I can research that myself. I don't think it's necessary to ask you to brief it. That should be relatively straightforward. So I think if the parties are comfortable waiving post-hearing briefing, then I think that we'll go ahead and do that. And I think what I've done in the past where we've waived briefing, I think I've issued a written order just confirming that for the sake of the record. As far as a proposed RD is concerned, I do appreciate the offer. We appreciate the offer, and that certainly is something that's been done in the past. The hearing examiners as a division are trying to move away from that to take more responsibility for what we're writing, and we're trying to make our RDs a little bit better, and that also is part of not currently asking the parties for proposed RDs. I don't want to suggest that it wouldn't be helpful. But currently we're not really doing that. But I will commit to the parties that hearing examiner Schaefer and I are going to do everything that we can to get this RD out as soon as possible. I would imagine that would happen. I don't want to speak for him, but probably within the next month. So we'll issue that expeditiously. But we do appreciate the offer. And other than that,
Hearing examiner
Thank-
Schaefer, I don't believe I have anything.
Thank you
Dana?
very much for clarifying all of that.
Thank you. Well, thank you, hearing examiner Camp. And again, if there's no other matters to be addressed at this hearing, I will adjourn now at 11:30 a.m. and wish you all the best. Thank you again for taking the time, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you, everyone.
everybody.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
everybody.
Bye.